currently 27% of your age group will go on to the local universities, namely NUS, NTU, SMU, and the new one that just opened last week, the Singapore University of Technology and Design. Now, the percentage that go on to university is called the CPR, or the cohort participation rate, by people who plan university places, the number of university places. And recently, the government had made the promise that the cohort participation rate will go up to 30% in 2015. This is with the new university, the Singapore University of Technology and Design, the Singapore Institute of Technology, which is for polytechnic graduates, the Yale NUS Liberal Arts College, which I'm sure some of you may be eyeing, and the new NTU Imperial College Medical School. And currently, the government is also looking into setting up a fifth university. It has said there's room to raise the cohort participation rate further. But to what level do you think it should be raised? 40%? 50%? Do you think 1 in 2 amongst you should be going to university? That's something they should think about. But there have been mixed responses from students and parents. Some students and parents want more university places. They feel that a university degree is a minimum that you need to have a good job and a good life. Others say that enough university places have been provided, and that if more were to be provided, there might be an oversupply of university graduates, and it may lead to underemployment or unemployment of graduates, as it has done so in some Asian countries recently. But before determining whether we should increase the number of places further and to what level, there are some important questions that need to be asked by the government that's planning the fifth university. First, we all think the university degree is the passport to a good life, a good job and a good life. Do university graduates here really earn more in their lifetime and enjoy a better life? This is something that you need to think about. Most parents, of course, and students want more places because they feel that a degree is the minimum requirement, especially those who have children who go on to the polytechnics. At the moment, they feel that not enough places are being made available in the local universities for polytechnic graduates. An interesting study done by the Ministry of Manpower in 2007 showed that every extra year of schooling enhances a worker's earnings in Singapore by 13.7%. This means, of course, that a university graduate would earn more as he would have more years of education. The rate of return is higher, according to our Ministry of Manpower reports. And of course, the government, which is planning a fifth university, has said that as the Singapore economy shifts towards higher value-added knowledge activities, demand will rise for more educated workers, which in turn means that if you have a higher education, you have higher earnings. But what about the future? This is the case so far. What about the future? And what about in a recessionary year? What happens? Are graduates as well employed? Singapore economy hit a speed bump 3-4 years ago when we went into a recession. And it's interesting to look at the Ministry of Manpower reports during those years, especially in the third quarter of 2009, when the recession started to bite in terms of the jobs market. And it showed that among those unemployed, about 6% were diploma holders, while 22% were degree holders. The same pattern was seen for redundancies, people who were laid off, with fewer poly graduates laid off than university graduates. There are several reasons that were cited for this. Poly graduates cost less to recruit and retain, and they possess more practical skills that employers value, especially in a downturn when all they need is a worker who can get their job done. Also, retrenched poly graduates were more willing to take slightly lower paying jobs. But interestingly enough, if you were to look again at the Ministry of Manpower reports following the year 2009, 2010, for example, the job prospects and salaries of degree holders recovered and even overtook the diploma holders. MOM's labor force report in 2010 showed that the unemployment rate was 3.7 for degree holders and 3.9 for diploma holders. Degree holders at that time comprised 30% of the workforce. Which leads us to another key question to ask: how many graduates can the Singapore economy absorb? Those who believe that a 25 or 30% cohort participation rate is enough for the economy are mistaken. Currently, the CPR rate is 25%. It will go up to 30% in 2015. But if you were to add the graduates, the students who head overseas or to the private schools, the estimate that it may be as high as 5,000 to 8,000 a year. Then you're really looking at a CPR rate that is closer to 50%. That means already currently 1 in 2 in your age group will have a university degree, just not necessarily from a local university. So in a sense, the Singapore economy is already able to absorb more graduates. In other words, 1 in 2 of you being graduates, 50% CPR rate. So this is something that you need to think about. But interestingly enough, employers, including the civil service, do make a distinction and differentiate between different types of graduates and degrees. I give you the example of the Singapore Institute of Management, which is by far the largest private school in Singapore that offers several degrees with overseas partners. Most Singaporeans who do not get a place in the local universities and who cannot afford to go overseas would go to SIM. And they have done occasional surveys to look at the job prospects of their graduates. And generally they get jobs, and they get pretty good jobs, but there's no denying that their salaries lag behind the graduates from the local universities. And this is the thing that worries some parents, whether expanding the local university places will cause employers to cherry pick or differentiate between graduates of different universities. But in a sense, this is already happening if you were to include SIM graduates. It's simply the discipline of the market. But the key thing, for some people at least, is that graduates of less prestigious universities can still find jobs. Which then leads us to another crucial question: what must a university education provide to give graduates an edge? Singapore, being a small country, will be hard-pressed to compete against China, India, and other developing countries as they ramp up their university capabilities. China wants to produce 8 million graduates a year by 2020, and India, 6 million. Singapore, our local universities produce about 15,000 graduates a year. Bears repeating then that any new university must ensure that it provides a quality education and turns out graduates with deep knowledge and useful skills. They should also provide that something extra. Let's look at some of the universities that were set up in the last 10 years. SMU and more recently the Singapore University of Technology and Design. You remember the ads that showed the SMU difference? Their students leaping up in the air, claiming to be different from the NUS, NTU graduates. At that time, in the year 2000, it did set off a debate on whether SMU is really that different, or was this just clever marketing. But SMU did try and set itself apart from NUS and NTU from the word go. It used, for one, a broader range of admission criteria, including SAT scores at that time, panel interviews, an essay, as well as applicants' other qualities and achievements outside class. It also adopted an American-style approach in teaching, with students taught in small seminar groups of 40 to 50. SMU students were also given marks for class participation. Up to 30% of their year-end grade was based on whether they spoke up in class and whether they contributed to the class projects. Interestingly enough, 4 years later, when employers received the first batch of SMU graduates, they noted an SMU difference. They said SMU students were more articulate, confident, and mature. The Singapore University of Technology and Design, which started running its classes earlier last week, also has some unique selling points. One of this is its partnership with MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, called the best engineering school in the world, and China's Zhejiang University, considered China's Ivy League university, and known as a very entrepreneurial universities. So, in a sense, SUTD combines the best of East and West. Another innovative feature of SUTD is its curriculum, where it marries engineering and architecture and with design training. Now, some of you may be going to Singapore's 5th university. It's time that you thought about, what do you think it should be? How should it be different? Or are there some amongst you who feel that perhaps there shouldn't be a 5th university? Thank you.